welcome to Willow Talk. We've got a bit of a different episode today, Hads. It's not so much about current events. We'll get to that next week. This is our second episode of the week. How are things, by the way? All good?
Mate, things are good. I'm excited about our new guest. And another thing,
Yeah.
Hugo found his jogger.
Ah, yeah, we touched on
It was in his
that.
locker.
Well, but where was the shoe? Where was the school shoe?
That was in his school bag.
That was in his school bag.
The one he lost was in his locker. He couldn't believe it was in his locker.
Okay, mystery solved, everyone. Early in the week, if you missed the story that Hads told, one of Hads' boys decided to come home, walk through the door, and he had two different shoes on. I don't know how that happens. I don't know how that goes through a teenager's brain.
Yep.
Scrambled eggs for brains sometimes. But the good news is you don't have to go out and purchase new shoes.
And he already did.
And the good thing is that he's not a growing child, so in 3 months' time you're going to have to buy a whole new suite of shoe wear
And
for
he's
him.
switched on one.
Oh, that says a lot about the others. Dear. Now, today we've got a special guest, a bit of an inkling of what's coming up next week. We're going to catch up for another English Willow Talk with Ashley Giles, who...
Smash me.
So he's got. I'll bring that up with him. I don't know how he's going to take it, but no, he's going to have a good chat with us about the 2005 Ashes in particular and everything in the build up to that.
Well, listen close to that and ask him about the King of Spain.
Well, that's going to be my first question because that's the name of his book, The King of Spain and I.
It's a very, very good story how that came about.
Exactly. Now, don't forget to send us in all your feedback through our YouTube page at Listener Sport. All the full-length episodes are there under the Willow Talk banner. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on the Listener app as well. Send us through your reviews, your feedback, anything, and your cricket caps. The details of where to send them are in the episode notes. But our guest today, so Hads, the one good thing about cricket is that you meet people in your life that give you joy after cricket finishes or you stop playing. And you've got a few of those in your life. And our guest, John Hastings today, is one of those such people.
John Hastings, first and foremost, he's one of the most loyal teammates you can have. When you walk out onto the ground, you look to your left or right, if he's there, you know you're in for a good day because he's a bit like Andrew Simons, where no matter what you need to do to get the result done, that man will do it. But that's not what this chat's going to be about. He is one of the best off-field tourists and best storytellers you'll ever hear. So stay tuned for that because he's a funny, funny man, John Hastings, without trying to be.
We don't have to stay tuned for too long. Here it is, John Hastings, a good chat about cricket and life around cricket. Yeah, John Hastings joins us, and listen, since we've locked you in, John, Hads has just been schooling me up a little bit on not only your cricketing ability, but your ability around cricket, which we'll dive into. Hads?
Well, I actually forgot Hastings played cricket because he was one of the best tourists you'd ever have to go on a tour with. I was lucky enough to go on the 2011 World Cup. But, hey, so I'll start it off. When the guest knew you were coming on, we scrolled through, asked for some questions, and there was one question. I won't give it away. They said you still hold a record at your local pub in Victoria. What is that record?
Oh, Hads, it's good to see, mate. It is good to see you. It's one of my, I probably shouldn't have been down there that weekend. It was Queen's birthday long weekend, I think. And I think I was coming back from one of my shoulder surgeries, and a couple of mates of mine own the local pub down in Sorrento, and it's called the 100 Club. So they used to sort of be the old guys, used to have a board up there called the Centurion, and, before sort of any liquor licensing or, responsible service of alcohol, good old boozer, put your name up on there if you can knock off 100 pots within a week. So I only had the weekend. So I sort of thought, well, I'm going to have to go pretty hard here day one. So 47 pots on day one, and then I had to go back the next day, and I sort of walked down to grab I think a smoothie or something like that. The next morning I was a little bit rough, and then it was almost like the whole little town knew that I was going for the 100 in a weekend, and they were like, how many today? What's going on? Like, Jesus, everyone knows this. It's spread around the local community, and then yeah, got there second day, had another 40 odd pots, and then just had to knock off about 13 or 14 on Sunday. So yeah, and then I've got a little plaque there in the Sorrento Hotel where I sat the whole weekend. So it just says Duke's 100. You're not allowed to put it up on the board anymore. So, and then we had training, I think, on the Tuesday, and it was a spin session. I just remember Sid's going, holy hell, what is going on there? There was just water all around my spin bike like that. So it wasn't one of my finest moments, but it was good fun.
It was like you wrung out a sponge after a car wash. It was just
that was exactly how it went.
Oh, brilliant. We'll start with folklore. We'll go to the cricket now, shall we? We'll talk a little bit about cricket. And like obviously cricket's in the rear vision mirror for you, and you've become a really successful businessman. We'll get to that as well. Still playing the odd bit of cricket. But what overall, when you look at that part of your life, what did cricket give you?
Oh, it gave me everything. Like, I mean, you know, it's just one of those ones where you're in a family, and you know, I mean, coming from Hawkesbury as a young kid with two really good mates going through the New South Wales system, you get to a point where, you know, you get your first rookie contract. Then, you know, I think the New South Wales squad at the time had about 10 or 11 Australian players. And I remember standing there for my first pre-season. There was Brett Lee, Shane Lee, Nathan Bracken, Pads, War Brothers. Everyone was there sort of, you know, doing the first day of pre-season, having sprints and things like this. I'm just like, far out, this is incredible. And then, you know, you fast forward sort of 15, 16 years and you look back at some of the memories, and it feels like a distant memory. It almost feels like, you know, two separate parts of life now, because my last game was sort of 2017, was in Edgbaston for the Champions Trophy against New Zealand, where we got knocked out, and then had loads of injuries, but it's given me a really good opportunity to sort of do what I'm doing now, and living over here in London. And I think the mates that you make, the memories that you have, it's just incredible. You know, I got to be a part of the IPL, which is incredible in itself. And then you've sort of, you know, you make some decent money along the way where you can set yourself up really. So, you know, I started a couple of businesses straight after I finished in Australia with a cafe and wine bar. My wife sort of said, well, I've been supporting you for 15 years and now it's time to support me. So she sort of ran the cafe and wine bar and did a good job. I was out the back just washing dishes. I was one of the best underwater ceramic detailers you've ever seen. So that was good fun. And then we sort of went into the strong Pilates stuff. We were the first franchise to open outside of a head office owned, and it was just a really good opportunity. But I think just the memories along the way, I sort of, after, and I'm sure we'll get into this, after sort of the Masters League recently, it sort of just gives you a chance to reflect. I had to open up YouTube and just have a look at a few highlights to make sure that I did play cricket.
Well, a couple of highlights are there instead at the moment when you type in your name on YouTube, but we'll get to that as well, Hats.
Yeah. Hey, Sto, to me, looking back at your career, you'd have no regrets. You got everything out of your body physically, mentally. Yeah, you won competitions. You represented Australia. You got your test match. But to me, you'd have no regrets.
Absolutely none, Hads. That's one of the things, like, you know, live and die by the sword. And I was never overly talented. It was more I had to work extremely hard, repetition, you know, in the gym, prided myself on trying to be the fittest. You know, I loved having a good time, which probably didn't help, but, you know, I wouldn't take it back. Exactly.
Well,
you wouldn't take those much. Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't take it back. And I think that's probably one of the big things, is that you can honestly say that, you know, well, I can honestly sit there and say, you know, I've got maximize every single bit of energy and effort out of my body, but also mentally as well. I just never wanted to lose, and I was always very proud, and I didn't want to let my teammates down. So yeah, there's definitely no regrets there from me. I had an amazing time, and it's sort of, you know, given me opportunities outside, you know, to live the rest of my life.
The test that you played was a significant one in the sense that it was yourself and Ricky Ponting's last test. And also you got the one test wicket, and it's just not some bunny who can barely hold a bat. It's one of the greatest of all time in AB de Villiers. So what's the defining memory from that particular week of your life?
Oh, it was funny actually. The other day I played 2 games in this last Legends League, and all the boys, I was standing at the top of my mark and AB was batting, and they're like, "Well, get him again, Duke." And then the first one hit. So it wasn't ideal.
No.
But look, I think that memory was incredible. I remember Bobby Quiney played in that series as well. We were sort of chatting about it the last few weeks. And Sids and Hilfenhaus bowled that marathon spell to Faf, and it was a draw. And, I think going into camp, I was sort of had a good start to the season. I was feeling really good about my game. And then you get to the camp, into camp a few days earlier in Perth with the time difference, and Ricky sort of had a team meeting and he's pacing around. I'm thinking, what's going on here? And then, to see him raw and emotional, I was sort of only 25 or 26 at the time, and it was his words then before we were going to the last day's practice were just incredible. And it was sort of hit me then and there that it was going to be a big moment. And if I was to play in that, then how am I going to go? And I remember Josh Hazlewood was never going to play. He had a hot spot in his foot, and I didn't know until the morning of the game that I was actually going to make my debut. So I was thinking, okay, well, let's see. Hazlewood's a gun. He's obviously, going to be playing in front of me. But he didn't. And then I remember Pup just came and tapped me on the shoulder. He goes, "Congratulations, mate, you're in. Enjoy the moment. And by the way, you're going to open the bowling." And I went, "What?" I hadn't opened the bowling for about 5 years, and here I am uphill into the breeze.
Great.
Just opening the bowling to a couple of the best players in the world. So, yeah, it was an incredible moment. Adam Gilchrist gave me my baggy green, and, that's a bond that we will share forever. Whenever he was in Melbourne, he would used to just, message me, "Let's go for a beer." So it's one of those ones where you just remember those type of moments forever. Unfortunately, it didn't go to plan. Went all right in the first innings, but second innings, I actually pushed one off the back foot when I was batting in the first innings, and Faf ran around and picked it up one-handed, and I dived to make my crease and popped my facet joints in my back. So I had to bowl the whole next sort of, 25 overs with blown facet joints. So I had none for 100 in the second dig, which wasn't overly great. And then, I missed about 6 or 8 weeks of cricket after that with my back. So, it was an unbelievable memory though.
You got none for 100 that day at the Sorrento pub. No spews for 100 beers, so you doubled up in that regard. One of the great tourist hats.
One of the great competitors.
Yeah.
What you admire about playing with John, you understand when he's in your team. He's one of those guys you want to walk onto the field with, and you only have to look left and you go, no, I'm right that side. And that's probably the best compliment your teammates could pay you. Hey, so he's one of those guys that would always put them before him. And you don't play with many players that live that 100%, and Hayso was one.
Was it true, John, that you used to have a little get-together at the start of each summer for your Victorian teammates? What was the spread like?
Absolutely. Yeah, we did. It was always one of those ones. I mean, I loved getting everyone together. And I loved making sure that we were, fit and firing and had a good off season. That's for sure. But yeah, whenever we would get into pre-season, it'd be around my place or probably because Clint Mackay and James Pattinson and I used to live together. So you can imagine that household.
My goodness.
That's a whole nother episode.
But
yeah, exactly. We used to love training hard and working together as a team, and as had said, I took it upon myself to make sure that everyone was okay, and I just used to love playing with my teammates. You look back on some of the memories, and whilst playing for Australia is incredible, the off-field stuff and being together as a group of mates trying to achieve something great is something really, really special.
Hey, so you're right in the middle of it at the moment. With the Ashes and Bazball, At home, it's just taken off to a new level after the India-England series. Do you feel like it's building there? Is this England team going to entertain? Can they stand toe-to-toe with our boys?
It's interesting over here. I think, I actually caught up with Baz for lunch a little while ago over here, and he's just like, it's a bit blown out of the water a little bit. I mean, we're just going in there with confidence, and the media runs with the title, and that's the way it is. But you can see what a shift in mindset actually does to a dressing room. With him coming in, whilst he's relaxed, he's very sensible in his approach and how to get the best out of people. So I think it's just a shift in mindset that they've had, that they want to take the game on, and they're doing a really good job of it. I think their batting is as good as anyone in the world. Root's incredible. He's going to go down as one of the best, if not the best, that's ever played the game. And I think the only question mark will be around their bowling unit. I still don't think they know what the best combination is, and they've got a really young bowling unit. We saw that in the last test against India. But I think, and they've done something similar to what we used to do with the Sheffield Shield, is that they've, the last few rounds of county are with the Kookaburra. And I think that's just going to be a waste of time over here in the UK. But when they get there, it'll be interesting to see how they actually adapt and pick up and what their actual bowling unit will be. But I think Australia will win the series. I think it'll be a really good series. I think it'll be a bat-off rather than anything else. I think both units are really solid. I think there's probably more question marks around our top three than there ever has been. So, I think Australia will win because we do have such a good bowling unit, but it will just be about how the big three and Scotty Boland stay fit during the season as well, and how Cricket Australia manage them leading into the Ashes. But, I think the hype around Baz Ball's a bit, I don't know, I don't really buy into it that much.
Well, interesting what you say there about Brendan McCullum being like, I heard early in the tenure he didn't want it to be called Bazball. He tried to push back against that. One thing I know against the English press, they're like the tide. They'll find a way to do what they want to do. They'll push water up against the wall and they'll crumble the wall eventually. So he lost that battle, but he's not overly chuffed the fact that it is actually called Bazball. It's a pretty catchy name though.
Yeah, I know, and that's the thing. I think it's you can't fight what people's opinions are out there, can you? So, but it's just, honestly, it's just a shift in mindset, and they're more positive than they have been. I think it's probably about time. The Poms are so negative anyway. Living over here for the last 2.5 years, I've seen it all. So
it's about time they 50 days a year. Fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. It was sunny yesterday for the first time in about 2 years, so it's great.
Hey, so we had Painey on not long ago. It was weird because he's sitting there with his coach's hat on. And that was weird in itself, as he's looking after our next generation.
Trying to be sensible.
And we all love Painey. And all of a sudden, the conversation got to Bangalore. and you spoke about punter Payson before. He was pacing that day after we signed off on his room bill. But he did tell a funny story about Yuvi's hotel room.
Yuvraj Singh.
Where the three of us... And I don't want to ruin it. I'm going to let you take the floor. You tell us your version.
Yeah. Well, I think he neglected to mention that bit, didn't he, about the where he signed off on punter's room bill. But it was one of those ones where we'd obviously had a few, and I think we'd obviously been invited up to Yuvi's room and walked in, and there was a suite. It was massive. It was as big as my house over here, and I'd remember looking around, I just think, geez, there's so many people in here. What's going on with this music? So I was sort of fiddling around with the laptop trying to get some of my playlist on, and I sat on the edge of this. It's probably, he told it fairly accurately. It's probably 85% true.
That's not bad.
There was a ledge, they had the phone on there was a laptop. I sat on it and poof, off it came down on the floor. And I just remember everyone just stopped and looked and went, silent, dead quiet, pin could drop. And I just went, what am I going to do here? I'm a young kid. It's Yuvraj Singh's room. There's so many people here. There's probably Bollywood celebrities everywhere. And I just went, right, stay calm. And I went to the phone, which was already out of the wall. and I'd seen the cord be ripped out of the wall. So I just thought, I'll just make sure that I've made this right. And there was no one on the end of the line. So I picked up the phone. I said, reception, yep, John Hastings. I just want to make sure that there's a bit of damage in Mr. Singh's room. I'll make sure I fix it up. I'm in room such and such. And everyone was like, well done, mate. That's brilliant. And everyone just kicked on, played on. I actually went down to reception to make sure that, I could rectify the situation, but there was never another word. So happy days. I didn't have to pay for any damage, and we had a really good night.
Does Yuvraj Singh know this story? Is he learning about this story through these podcasts?
I think he did know. I saw him the other day, and he barely shook my hand, so maybe he did know.
Didn't get an invite to his suite after the game by any chance?
Mate,
Not a chance.
The other one I remember on that tour, hey, so I know you were there. We went to, was it Silk in Sri Lanka? We had a few days off.
Yeah.
We had a good crack. We had a good fun. Were you around Steve Smith when he tipped the tuk-tuk?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't. No, I think it might have been a few days later. I think it was. Yeah. But I remember the story. That was incredible. Yeah. And how we didn't get in trouble for that and be hauled over the coal, I'll never know. But geez, I tell you what, we trained hard that 2011 World Cup. I was never a chance to play, so I was a very good tourist. But I remember the seaplane going from Kandy over to Hambantota. That was one of the scariest moments of my life. And we had the option, you could either drive 18 hours on a bus, or we could go to a ravine where there was a dam where these blue 40-gallon drums. You could sort of walk out onto the platform and the team would get into the seaplane. We could just see it. We're standing on this hill. It was mud. And you could just see it coming down. This seaplane's like in it lands, and then it sort of floats around. And I remember Alex Gutierrez and Watto, no thanks. So they went on the bus and all the rest of the team on the seaplane, and we were there in half an hour. But geez, I tell you what, it was a scary moment, that one, going into Hambantota landing.
How does a 6'6" good Australian tourist handle sitting in one of those little seats? All right for Hads, he's kind of not taking up two seats. You would have covered a couple there, surely.
Not very well. I had to have the legs out into what you would think was an aisleway, but it was more like about 10 centimetres worth of gap. So it wasn't comfortable, but we made it, and here we are. So that's the main thing, but it was a scary one there.
What else from that trip? Anything else from that trip?
I'll tell you what happened that night. And Steve Smith took control of the tuk-tuk. I was behind him, and I remember driving along, sort of faint, like sort of seeing him in the distance. My eyesight wasn't that good then after the session we had, and it tipped. and you do sober up when you see a trauma. You do sober up real quick.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, mate, this is one of the best players in the world. And he's just crawled out, sort of. He goes, "Oh, my shoulder's no good." I said, "That shut up. You got no bark off you. Like, you shut up." And I remember the next day, and Hayso's got a unique skill of being able to get up and train. And the trainer at the time, Stuart Carpenter, said, "Guys, you got to be here at 8." And we said, "Mate, we'll be there." And I remember running up and down the Corso. Hayso's sweating, and every time we got further away from Carpa, I remember dry reaching, but we made a pact. You just had to get through that moment. Oh, it was a long day, but mate, Steve Smith, when he crawled out of that tuk-tuk, was a huge relief. We all would have got sacked. We were gone.
It was a good code of silence that trip as well. As I remember, it only came out after we were on the plane home. But yeah, it was one of those ones where you just it could be anything, but you had to get up and train. You had to be there. You had to put in. If you do the crime, you do the time.
Now I know why there's a freaking like a coronial inquest into Australian cricket every 6 years or something like that. Incidents like this. Anyway, the Argus report. That's where that was born out of. It wasn't born out of anything on field. It was born out of tut-tuts and nearly ending the life of a
nothing out of it.
Australian legend. Anyway.
Same story we all had.
Hey, John, the Legends League. Now, let's get to it. What the hell happened in that over? What the hell happened?
Well, first of all, I wasn't aware that there was so many people watching. The selectors didn't do their homework, Hads, because I remember the Road Safety World Series about 4 years ago where the same thing happened. But at that time, I hadn't played for like 4 years. This time, I thought, I can't embarrass myself again. I remember Hads standing at the top of his, behind the sticks, and he's like, which side do you want me to stand? Do you want me to stand offside or do you want me to stand offside? Because I just had no idea where they were going, and there was 20,000 over in India, and it's a really hard thing to explain for anyone that hasn't been through it. But the other day, I played 2 games. I thought it'd be a great idea. I'd actually trained a fair bit leading into this, so I'm like, I'm feeling all right in the nets, Battersea Park, and yeah, whenever there's pressure on and you go through it, it is incredible. So I remember a couple of weeks ago, it was the Sunday game. AB de Villiers was there. I ran in, first one, missed the pitch. So, after the game, I bowled 2 overs. I think they got 240, and I only went for 22 off 2 overs. But I think I bowled about 8 wides in that game. So leading into the Pakistan game, after the game, South Africa, the anti-corruption guys came up to me and said, geez, you put us through a bit of hell last night. I said, why's that? Why is that? And he said, well, we had to have a look at it. You missed a pitch on one of your balls. And I said, well, do you really think that I'd be doing any match fixing or anything like that? And he said, well, no, but you don't know where you've been or what you've been doing for the last 7 years. I said, mate, give me a spell. No, I'm not corrupt. But I think the thing was the Pakistan game, it's hard to explain. So, I had so many text messages from all the cricket fraternity, but also I deleted social media for 3 days straight away when I come off the field after the Pakistan game because I just didn't want to deal with it. But it's hard. Like I was making, it's not funny, but it's just one of those ones where you can't explain what happens to you when you're actually bowling. It feels like, I made a joke in one of the groups. It feels like Aaron Finch sat on my hand for about 3 hours before I bowled. So you run in, it's fine, everything's all good, and then you get to your mark and it just feels like someone just slaps your hand and you lose feeling in your hand. And that's what we sort of commonly know in the cricket world as the yips. So for me, it was hard to take and it was embarrassing and it was horrendous. But, I think I'm back on social media. So the 1.5 million people that messaged me on Instagram, I'm back. So I'll reply back to you when I can. It's just one of those ones. I remember I bowled the first ball and I just kept thinking in my mind, just get it on the pitch. And it was a wide. And after that, it just sort of spiraled out of control. And I only needed 20 off that last over. And Sid's came down from sort of long off and he goes, is your pack all right? I was like, I wish it wasn't. And he sort of kept coming back after every ball and he was like, Braz, you sure? Is it all good? I'm like, and I was too proud just to sort of, walk away and say, I can't do this anymore. So I took the embarrassment and it was horrendous. And it's just one of those things where, I think people don't really understand unless you have gone through it. But, it's a story to tell.
It's a great story to tell, Hasto, and only you. I was involved in your first one, and I'm not so much worried about what happened on the field. The reenactment after, I don't know how many bottles of scotch and vodka, we worked into the moment, and Hasto reenacted his over.
Oh, yeah.
I've never laughed so much in my life. Was there a reenactment of it, Hasto?
There wasn't this time. There was an official retirement party, that's for sure. I'll never take the cricket field. I actually put a message on the group after it and everyone was sort of like, it's a tough one. Everyone's like, don't know what to say, white as a ghost. And
who broke the ice?
And I did. I said, we were sitting down there and no one's really just looking around. I said, well, get back behind that laptop, you idiot, like that. And everyone just absolutely lost it. I was laughing, and I just put a message on the group on the bus on the way back to the hotel. I just said, right, downstairs for a drink. It's my official retirement party. I'm never playing again.
Hey, so I watched a little bit of that tournament, and having played in one, this looks like it's a bit playing for sheep stations. To me, they were like a reunion where you caught up with your old teammates without the pressure of New South Wales playing Victoria or Victoria playing Queensland, being on a World Cup with all the anxiety. It was actually a great time, but the cricket.
Yeah, but this one
looked like, mate, it was for sheep stations.
It was incredible, Hads, honestly. Like the one we played, there was a bit of a tagline to it, wasn't it? It was like road safety. We were promoting sort of, good habits on the roads in India and all that sort of thing. So there was sort of a purpose to it. But this was like, and I was expecting it to be like that. But you come in, you're playing with Linney and Darcy Shaw, AB de Villiers, who could still play in the national team at the moment. The Pakistan team was ridiculous. The Indian team was ridiculous. So fair to say I was a little bit out of my depth, having not played a lot of the last little bit, but everyone was taking it extremely serious. And I sort of, whilst I was expecting to compete, it was a bit of a shock, far out. They were still running around. I can hardly move my knees.
Yeah, like I saw some of South Africa playing. It's like, guys, like seriously, you are not playing for the World Test Championship, which you've just won. And like, we don't want to go into it, but India and Pakistan calling off games because of geopolitical tensions and everything like that. Kind of morphed into something other than the spirit in which it was conceived, I think. Anyway, we've got a list here of moments in cricket just to make you feel better, because I reckon these are worse. We've got Shane Warne dropping Damien Fleming's hat-trick ball, although it has given Flem after dinner speaker gigs left, right and centre and a story. He's barely told a story, but when he does, it's great. New Zealand losing a World Cup final that they didn't lose. They actually drew to England, but they lost on boundary countback. That's worse.
Yes.
Daryl Tuffy's over in a game that actually counted against Australia in 2005. I think it was 15 runs off one ball or something like that. That was worse. And any series in which you claim a moral victory, that's worse. You okay with that list? Anything to add to that list?
I'm good with that list. If there's any more, feel free to send them over, because it was a rough little 24 hours, that one. But we move on, don't we?
Well, I dropped Joe Root on Nord in my last test and he got 100.
Ooh. How was that next couple of hours in your life, Hads? Like watching him just... Was there any advice given to the young man as he went through the 20s and 30s, or you just left him alone?
And the worst thing about it was my own fault for not concentrating.
Oh, really?
Joe Root, he used to open his face and play a bit off the back foot. You just had to get your guy behind point in the perfect spot, bring your gut. And I was trying to look at them out of the corner of my eye and move them. And I sort of half went in my crouch. He's nicked it, I've dived, and went, oh, no, I've dropped him. Oh, it won't cost me. Oh, mate. Mate. I did the same speech.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm out. I retired.
Just on the three Aussie quicks that are there now, they were around when you were coming onto the scene as well. And obviously you mentioned Hazelwood before. Mitch Starc was in that test match in Perth. Pat Cummins probably would have been there, but he was at the start of his 6-year stress fracture journey and eventually got back, and thank God he did. But did you see greatness over a very long period of time in those guys when you're around, or you don't really know as a bowler and as a cricketer, you just have to let it play out?
I think these three are probably the ones out of the box. Like, they're taller than I am. They're good athletes. You could see it from a very early age that they were going to be something special. I think there was there a story around with Hazelwood's old man, Hads, where he was sort of he said that, I think he had a punt on it, I think, and it was something like, my son, he wanted to find someone that would take a bet for a couple of grand that said, my son's going to be playing test cricket. And eventually,
McIlroy one.
yeah, it paid off, and he got paid out quite a sum, I think. But I think you look at it, and the longevity they've had is incredible. I think fast bowling is really bloody hard, and for them to be as good as they are and have been and continue to be is pretty special. So I thought they were going to be very, very good, but I don't think you can ever tell how good someone is going to be. But I mean, these three guys have really flown the flag for the last, probably 10 years now and being able to do that is incredible. And I think with Scotty Boland in the mix as well, they're a very, very, very good foursome. And then you add in Nathan Lyon, who's one of the greatest, finger spinners we've had. So yeah, they are brilliant.
And Scotty Boland, what did you notice about him when he came onto the scene at Victoria, if you were around at that time? But I'm presuming it crossed over. I mean, was it a guy that at the moment he's a man of few words, so I can't imagine what he was like, a new guy walking into a Victorian state setup where there's some pretty bloody big characters.
Well, it's funny, Adam. He was sort of, I remember him coming in as a young kid. He was a little bit bigger than most young kids, I would suggest.
Yeah, well built. Yeah.
Well built, we'll say. I remember him coming in, and Greg Shippard sort of said, I want you to take this youngster under your wing and basically show him how to train. So that's what I did. And, we were quite close, and we still are very, very close. And I think, what we've had over the last sort of 10 years as a friendship, and I wouldn't say I've, been an overly great influence off the field for him, but he was sensible enough to sort of know when there was a time to have a beer and when there isn't. And he's one that's worked so hard on his game to get where he is today. And if there's not a statue at the MCG of him when he retires, I'll be very upset.
I got one more for him. It's just popped into my head. John, you've booked an Uber, and there's 3 spare seats in the back, and you're going to a pub to catch up for old time's sakes and tell some cricket stories, which will turn into lies and potentially turn into something that you get home when the sun comes up. Who's filling those back 3 seats for you as you head to a local establishment?
Oh, that's a good question. I've played with some very good off-field
performers.
How do you say it? Yeah, some off-field performers. I mean, my time at Durham was incredible. We had Stokes Wood, not the Woody drinks. You had Paul Collingwood. You had Colonel Mustard, who was a big swiller. And then, Clint Mackay is one of the greats. Then you've got Wadey, Quiney. You throw them all in. But I think you do. We need a minibus rather than a 3-seater or a 4-seater. Yeah. But I'd probably throw Clint Mackay in there. He's very underrated off the field. Then I'd probably throw Wadey in there just because he's so funny and aggressive when he goes at it. And I just love having a beer with him and just taking the piss out of him so much. And then the 3rd seat is a really tough one because there's so many. There's probably a lot. I'd probably say Peter Siddle pre-rebirth, I would say.
Pre-40 bananas a day.
Absolutely.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant. Anything more, Hads?
Well, it's been a pleasure. Hey, so the only one thing I want to finish off with, is it true, was it the Tuscany you went to in the IPL, and are you and Sock the only players that came home from the IPL negative in earnings?
Oh, that's a whole nother story. I remember this is actually quite a funny story. But I think we were finishing up in the 2011 World Cup, and our last leg we were in. Well, it might have been a tour actually. It was a tour where we were in Bangladesh playing, and Shane Watson and I were going to the same airport, so we're on the same flight. And Kochi Tuskers Kerala were bought for about I think it was like something like 290 million or something like that. There was 9 different owners. It was a bit of a shambles, to be honest. And we landed, I think it was into Mumbai, and Watto had a nice black sort of Sprinter pick him up, and there was no one at the airport to pick me up. So I jumped in a tuk-tuk with bags on the top of the roof and straight to the airport, and then straight to the hotel, sorry. And then I got there and there was no room. under Mr. Hastings. And then I finally got the team manager down, and then he gets me into this room and he says, I'll get someone to get your kit. We got training this afternoon. I was like, yep, no problem. Pants came halfway up my legs. The shirt, my long sleeve shirt was halfway up like a short sleeve shirt. There was no S on the back of my shirt. It was just Hasting. And then, I was only there for a couple of weeks and then I left because I was injured. But I think I spent all my allowance on booze and then that was it. We didn't get paid either. So it was kind of one of those ones where I think Hodgie's still trying to chase down that money from the Kochi Tuskers Kerala. But yeah, it was an interesting one. We had a great side, but yeah, I think that was a shambles. They were only there for, a year or so in the actual tournament, and then they got booted.
Well, mate, you've been so good with your time. I do have to make mention of the fact that it's okay. The financials have improved because you've done bloody well out of building what looks to be an empire. I won't call it an empire. You can call it what you will, but Pilates studios, and that's why you're over there in London. You got the franchise model happening here in Australia. You're going to go into the US. Give it a mention, give it a plug, and we'll get around it. Not that I can do Pilates because I hurt myself, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a really unique concept. I'm really lucky to sort of be a part of the global network. So, the co-founders that started it up, Mark Armstrong and Michael Ramsey, they've just opened their 100th operational studio in New Jersey. So, I think they had 400 or 500 people through, over the weekend. So it's incredible. It's just one of those ones where I think it's a very good workout first and foremost. And then the Pilates industry is on another planet at the moment in terms of growth. So to be able to be over, in Europe and playing a small role, then, for me, it's good. You're trying to change people's lives for the better. And I think, we've still got a hell of a long way to go as we're growing, over the next sort of 5 to 10 years. So loving my time in the UK, and, there's lots to be excited about moving forward for us as a brand. So really, really excited about it. And I think it's pretty well established now in Australia, and it's pushing on into parts of Europe and the US. So yeah, it's one of those ones where I think it's going to be quite a big thing.
Is a Sorrento studio just for those who try to have a crack at the 100 at the local pub to sweat it out the next day?
I was pushing for a Sorrento studio from day one. I wanted to be a part of that one. I would do well down there. Don't worry about that, especially if you needed a workout before you're heading off to the Sorrento Hotel.
And you can view the plaque there. John Hastings, really appreciate your time, mate. That was fun. That was funny and fun, and being a good sport about what happened in the World Champions League, which everyone took way too seriously, so who gives a shit, really? And, mate, best of luck with what you're doing over there, and hopefully catch you over the summer at some point back in Australia.
Thanks, gents. I appreciate it. I love the show.
Yeah, thanks for watching the Willow Talk podcast on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't have to miss an episode wherever you are. And while you're at it, check out these videos up here. They're mostly good.